When 90-year-old comedy legend Carol Burnett invited Steve Harvey to her show, what happened next became the most heartwarming TV moment in history and proved that true comedy genius recognizes and celebrates other comedy genius, regardless of generation, background, or style. It was March 2024, and 90-year-old Carol Burnett was sitting in her Los Angeles home, scrolling through television channels during her afternoon routine, when she stumbled upon an episode of Family Feud that would change both her life and Steve Harvey's life in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Carol had been watching Steve host the show for several minutes when something about his natural timing, his genuine connection with the contestants, and his ability to turn even the most awkward moments into comedy gold reminded her of something she recognized from her own decades in entertainment: the rare gift of authentic comedic instinct. "This man has it," Carol said to herself as she watched Steve turn a contestant's embarrassing answer about things you do in the bathroom into a moment of pure hilarity that had both the studio audience and Carol herself laughing out loud. "He has that special something that you can't teach and you can't fake." Carol Burnett had spent over 6 decades in show business, from her groundbreaking variety show in the 1960s and 70s to her continued work in television, film, and theater. She had worked with the greatest comedic talents of multiple generations, and she recognized authentic comedy genius when she saw it. But what struck Carol most about Steve Harvey wasn't just his comedic ability. It was his kindness, his respect for people from all walks of life, and his ability to make everyone feel included in the joke rather than excluded by it. "You can tell a lot about a comedian by how they treat regular people," Carol observed as she watched Steve interact with the Family Feud contestants. "Steve treats everyone like they matter, like their stories are worth hearing, like their embarrassing moments are opportunities for connection rather than opportunities for cruelty." That evening, Carol called her longtime friend and producer, Bob Mackey, who had worked with her for decades and was one of the few people who truly understood her perspective on comedy and entertainment. "Bob, I want to do something special for my upcoming 91st birthday celebration show," Carol said. "I want to invite Steve Harvey to be my guest." "Steve Harvey? That's an interesting choice, Carol. What made you think of him?" "I was watching Family Feud today, and I realized something. Steve Harvey represents everything that's best about comedy. He's funny, he's kind, he's genuine, and he has the ability to make people laugh without making them feel small. He reminds me of the kind of entertainer I always tried to be." "That's a beautiful sentiment, Carol. But do you think he'd accept? I mean, you're talking about bringing a game show host onto a variety show with one of the greatest entertainers in television history. Bob, if Steve Harvey is half the man he appears to be on television, he'll understand that this isn't about game shows or variety shows. It's about comedy, it's about connection, and it's about recognizing that what we do matters." The next day, Carol made a decision that surprised everyone in her circle. Instead of having her representatives contact Steve's representatives, she decided to call Steve Harvey personally. Carol looked up the number for Steve's production company and, after explaining who she was to several assistants, was eventually connected to Steve himself. "Mr. Harvey, this is Carol Burnett." Steve, who was in his dressing room preparing for a Family Feud taping, nearly dropped his phone. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Did you say Carol Burnett?" "Yes, dear. I'm calling because I have a proposition for you." Steve sat down, his mind racing as he tried to process that his childhood comedy hero was actually calling him personally. "Miss Burnett, I need you to know that I grew up watching The Carol Burnett Show. You were one of the biggest influences on my understanding of what comedy could be." "That's very kind of you to say, Steve. And that's actually why I'm calling. I'm doing a special birthday celebration show, and I would be honored if you would join me as my guest." Steve was quiet for so long that Carol wondered if the connection had been lost. "Steve, are you there?" "I'm here, Miss Burnett. I'm trying to process that Carol Burnett is personally inviting me to be on her show. This feels like a dream." "Well, if it's a dream, then let's make it a beautiful one. Will you say yes?" "Miss Burnett, I would be honored beyond words to appear on your show, but I have to ask, why me? You could have anyone in entertainment as your guest." Carol's answer would stay with Steve for the rest of his life. Steve, I chose you because you represent everything I believe comedy should be. You're funny, you're kind, you treat people with dignity, and you understand that our job as entertainers isn't just to make people laugh, it's to make people feel less alone in the world. When Steve hung up the phone, he sat in his dressing room for 20 minutes, overwhelmed by the significance of what had just happened. Carol Burnett just called me personally to invite me on her show, Steve told his wife Marjorie that evening. The woman who taught me what comedy could be wants me to share a stage with her. How do you feel about it? Marjorie asked. Honored, terrified, grateful, and humbled all at the same time. This isn't just about appearing on a TV show. This is about being recognized by someone whose opinion matters more than almost anyone else's in comedy. The weeks leading up to the taping were both exhilarating and nerve-wracking for Steve. He spent hours watching old Carol Burnett show episodes, studying her timing, her character work, and her ability to connect with audiences in ways that transcended simple joke-telling. I want to be worthy of this opportunity, Steve told his comedy mentor, Cedric the Entertainer. Carol Burnett is inviting me into her world, and I want to honor that invitation properly. When the day of the taping arrived, Steve was more nervous than he had been for any television appearance in his entire career. This wasn't just another talk show or award show. This was an opportunity to work alongside someone he considered comedy royalty. Carol greeted Steve personally when he arrived at the studio, and their first meeting was everything Steve had hoped it would be, and more. Steve, welcome to my little show, Carol said with the warmth and genuine enthusiasm that had made her beloved by generations of viewers. Miss Burnett, thank you for this incredible opportunity. I still can't believe I'm here. Please, call me Carol, and I invited you here because I wanted to work with you, not because I wanted to do you a favor. There's a difference. During their rehearsal, something magical happened. Steve and Carol developed an instant chemistry that surprised everyone in the studio. Their comedic timing meshed perfectly, their energy complemented each other beautifully, and most importantly, they genuinely enjoyed each other's company. You know what I love about working with Steve? Carol told the production team during a break. He makes me better. He brings out something in me that I hadn't felt in years, that pure joy of discovering comedy in the moment. The show itself became an instant classic. Carol and Steve performed a sketch together, where she played a demanding customer and he played a patient store clerk, and their improvisational skills created moments of comedy that had the studio audience laughing so hard that the taping had to be stopped several times. But the most powerful moment of the show came during their conversation segment, when Carol asked Steve about his journey in comedy. Steve, tell me about the moment you knew you wanted to be a comedian. Carol, I was 8 years old, sitting in front of our old television set, watching the Carol Burnett show with my family. You did this sketch where you played this character who was trying to be sophisticated, but everything kept going wrong, and I remember thinking, I want to make people feel the way Carol Burnett just made me feel. Carol was visibly moved by Steve's answer. And what feeling was that? Joy, Carol. Pure joy. You made me understand that comedy isn't just about getting laughs. It's about creating moments of happiness that people carry with them long after the show is over. Carol reached over and took Steve's hand. Steve, that's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said about my work. And I want you to know that watching you host Family Feud, seeing how you treat people with kindness and respect while making them laugh, reminds me why I fell in love with comedy in the first place. The audience was completely silent, witnessing an incredibly intimate moment between two generations of comedy greatness. You know what the best part about this is? Carol continued. I'm 90 years old, and I thought I had experienced everything comedy had to offer, but working with you today reminded me that there are still new discoveries to be made, new connections to be formed, and new reasons to love what we do. When the show aired 6 weeks later, it became one of the highest-rated variety shows in recent television history, but more importantly, it became a cultural moment that reminded audiences of the power of authentic human connection and the timeless nature of genuine comedy. The friendship that developed between Carol and Steve extended far beyond their television collaboration. They began talking regularly, sharing stories about their careers, their families, and their perspectives on comedy and life. Carol has become like a grandmother to me, Steve said during a later interview. She calls me to check on me, to give me advice, to celebrate my successes, and to remind me of what's really important in this business. Steve brings such joy to my life, Carol reciprocated. At my age, I don't have time for superficial relationships. Steve is genuine, he's kind, and he makes me laugh in ways that feel both familiar and fresh. Their collaboration also led to Carol making several appearances on Steve's shows, including a memorable Family Feud episode where she played with her family against Steve's family, creating television moments that showcased both of their talents in new ways. Working with Carol taught me something important about longevity in this business, Steve often reflects. It's not just about being funny, it's about being consistently kind, consistently genuine, and consistently focused on bringing joy to other people's lives. Today, Carol and Steve's friendship continues to inspire other entertainers and remind the industry that comedy is at its best when it brings people together rather than divides them. Carol keeps a photo from their first show together on her mantle, a picture of her and Steve laughing together during rehearsal, completely lost in the moment and the joy of creating comedy together. That photo reminds me that comedy is ageless, Carol says. Steve and I are from different generations, different backgrounds, different styles of comedy, but when we're together, none of that matters. What matters is the laughter, the connection, and the shared understanding that what we do has the power to make the world a little bit brighter. Steve keeps a handwritten note from Carol in his wallet, a note she wrote to him after their first show together that reads, "Steve, you have the gift. Use it wisely, use it kindly, and never forget that comedy is a privilege, not a right." Their collaboration proves that true comedy genius recognizes other comedy genius, and that the best moments in entertainment happen when generations of talent come together with mutual respect, genuine affection, and a shared commitment to bringing joy to the world. If this beautiful story of comedy legends coming together and the power of mutual respect across generations moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to see that true talent recognizes and celebrates other true talent. Have you ever been honored by someone you deeply admired, or have you had the chance to honor someone whose work inspired you? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about the connections that happen when greatness meets greatness, and the beautiful friendships that can develop between people who understand the power of bringing joy to others.